On the drive to the studio this morning, I had like an epiphany that I have been sucking at the way I've been looking at my tools as a mastering engineer. There's been some fatal flaws in the way I've been looking at them, assessing them, utilizing, leveraging them. Not that I've done bad masters, but I've limited myself in a sense. And we're going to look at some flaws in the way I've assessed my tools. I'm going to show you how I set up some new ear training today for myself and have really had to push myself. I spent an hour backing and forthing doing blind tests, absolutely sucking. And then we're going to do the actual blind test and hopefully I can get 5 out of 5. That's just my goal. If I can do 5 consecutive clean blind tests, that hour of pain was worth it today. And I'm going to have to replicate this across a lot of processes because I really want to learn them intimately. Before we jump into this, if advancing your mastering is something that you're interested in, I've got a 5-day mastering sprint down below. It's completely free. Feel free to sign up to it. And let's jump into this. So the first fatal flaw is I've got 2 tests I do, and we're going to look at the fatal flaw in number 1, and I don't think there's a flaw in the second one, but feel free to challenge me on this. The first one is a linear response graph. So typically when I do a test, you plot a linear response graph. This is for the God particle here. And when I'm driving, I'm thinking, well, how's a linear response graph created? So what happens is a sync wave is fed into the processor where it's a single instantaneous moment where all frequencies are of equal power, and then the output is recorded and then plotted. So that's an impulse response or a sync wave, and that's basically created by having one sample out like that. And if we look here at the, let's just slide this across. Whoops, let's zoom out a little bit. If we look at a spectrogram, you can see it's just all the frequencies at equal power. Now we'll put this back to a waveform and we'll zoom in. Now, there's a few interesting flaws here, and we're gonna look at what a sync wave is and then assess why this might not be the best way to understand the linearity of a plugin, even though on a single instance it works, but we'll get down this. So this is just the sample offset, okay? Now, we're going to go to the preferences, and I want you to understand what a sync wave actually looks like. Okay, so this is one linear, okay? So that's just the sample offset. A sync wave looks a little bit like this, and a sync wave is actually what constructs pulse code modulation. Every sample point, when we think of PCM or digital audio, we often think about it as steps like this, but it's actually not steps. They're actually sync waves, and sync waves are infinitely long, both present and future. So this actually doesn't have a 0 point technically. But when you see a waveform, every sample point is actually a sync wave in sequences of different amplitudes that are then reconstructed back together. Okay, and I've got a little graph here to show you. That graph is actually from Fabian from Tokyo Dawn Labs. He sent that to me in Messenger to explain it to me. Now, the reason why this sort of got me in a bit of a kerfuffle is because I said to myself, well, let's look at this for instance. This is the God particle. I've got my God particle data off to the side there at -0. Okay, so input output is 0, the limiter's off. What happens when you start changing the input? Oh, so when you start changing the input of that sync wave, it changes the linearity. And that's because there's dynamic processors and saturators and other stuff in it, which made me realize, well, wait a second, the way I'm using this particular graph, there's another graph we're going to look at as well, but the way I'm using this particular graph and understanding plugins isn't the most healthiest way, because when I am mastering, and I use the God particle, because I got some tests set up here, which I'm going to show you, I'm typically using the God particle, feeding it at not -5, but this is usually at 0, and the plugin feeding it will have a ceiling of -5 on the output, because that's typically where all the meters hit right and I get a good sound out of it. And that's a great way to approach it, but I never explore out of those boundaries. And in an interview with Rick Carson, he actually said something really interesting. He goes, you don't know what you don't explore. And that was something he got off one of his mentors. I can't remember the mentor's name, but I remember the mentor's face. So I'm going to pop up the name and face here. And basically, if you don't explore what 0 is, or what -7 or -8 is, how do you know what it's meant to sound like? Because I was making this assumption of this linear plot from the sync wave that there was some uniformity there, but it's not the case. And it was never the case. It was just that my ignorant blinders were on and I wasn't considering this, even though I knew better than this. So that's the first one. The next test I tend to do are Hammerstein graphs like this. And again, I plotted out the Hammerstein graphs based on the input, and surely so, the harmonics changed based on the input, which is absolutely knowledge I had, but I just wasn't applying in principle to the way I was approaching, the way I test things and the way I push things and operate with things in a mastering session. How is a Hammerstein graph done? Well, a Hammerstein graph isn't done with a sync wave. It's done, by my understanding at least, it is done with a sweep. So it sweeps from 0 to 20 kilohertz and tracks the relative fundamental and harmonic power across that period. So it does a big sweep. And I noticed that because whenever I test the analog gear, especially the Varimu with Hammerstein graphs, I can actually hear the tubes sweeping through those frequencies if I put my ear nice and close to it. And again, based on the input, the output changes. And even when I have no compression engaged on the God particle, the harmonics do change as well. So that's the fundamental flaw in my thinking. And you're probably thinking, oh, Nick, you should have known that. And I did know that, I just wasn't applying it. So how am I going to use this knowledge? Well, I thought, because I've got all these tests up that I've done, how about I push myself? I push myself to best understand this. And in pushing myself to best understand this, what I did was I took my results from these input-output with the compression on. And so I've got here input, the output 0, 0. And then I've done every single one all the way up to -12 plus 9.4, because that's what tracked as volume matched, because this also has compression in it, and made sure I level matched every single one to the 9th degree. So I could listen to all, I think there's 9 instances, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 9 instances I was listening to for an hour to sort of understand, oh, well, what does that sound like? What does that sound like? What does that sound like? So I could do some blind tests. And we're going to do a blind test at the end where we're just going to compare the 0 point, the -5 input gain, and the -12 input gain, because I was struggling to pick up the nuance, and it took me about an hour. Like, I could pick up from 0 to -12 really easily, those input values. There was quite a defined top-end tail off between the two, which was easy to make it to pick out. But all these steps in between were very difficult. So I pushed and pushed the test, and after an hour, I feel comfortable. I can, in a blind test, I'll pull this across so I can't see the meters. That's the one flaw in this, is when it's playing back, you can see the meters and cheat. So I'm going to pull this over the meters so they're not observable, and run some blind tests. And I want you to do these blind tests with me. When doing this, we're going to be guessing which is the 0, which is the -5, and which is the -12 input. So what it looks like is, this is 0 in, 0 out. -5 is, oops, what are we doing there? -5 is -5 in, 3 decibels out, and that's level matched to the 0 and 0. And then the -12 is -12 in, 9.4 out. Now I can leave them on the screen, but there's no real, well, I'll leave them on the screen. Why not? We'll move them over to there, because the blind test isn't going to affect, like, I can see them all running together, and it's not going to affect knowing which one's actually working. We'll run the blind test together just for, I might turn the blind test plugins off just briefly. Just for a little bit of listening, we'll understand which one is the -0, and then we'll switch to the -5 and then to the -12, okay? Let's do this. So we can hear the differences and see them, and then what we'll do is we'll do the blind test. We begin to us, broken trust, only lost. But I am waiting for you. We begin to us, broken trust, only lost. But I am waiting for you. So I'm not sure which differences you heard to your ears. To me, when everything was at unity, so the original one, 0 in, 0 out, I feel like it's a little bit more forward, especially in the hi-hats. They feel a little bit more edgier. And the -12 one feels a bit more pudgier. The -5 is typically what I work at, so that's really easy for my ear to pick out. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll run some blind tests with only those 3 playing styles. Before we jump into this, if advancing your mastering is something that you're interested in, I've got a 5-day mastering sprint down below. It's completely free. Feel free to sign up to it. And let's jump into this. We will roll the dice, press play, and then hopefully we can pick it out. We're going to do this 5 times. I'm not going to do any jump cuts on the screen or any edits, so we can just run this through straight away, starting now. Ooh, I got those 2 wrong. That sucks. All right. Let's see if I can get the other 4 right. I should have got that one right. I was pretty confident with that. Let's go again. Ah, bummer. Ugh. Boom. I got that right. I'm happy. Okay, that's 1 of 2. I'm going to get 3 more, and then I'll feel happy that I didn't waste an hour running blind tests before. Let's shuffle them up. Boom. Got that. All right. I'm happy with that. That's 2 of 3. We've got 2 more to do. Let's shuffle them up. Let's go. Just a quick pause there. The biggest giveaway between the 0 and the 12, as in the 0 input and the -12 input, is the top end. Straight away, I can hear the difference between the 2. I'm not confident in that. This one sounds like the 0, and this one sounds like the 5. Or was I right first? Now I'm double guessing myself. I got to start again. I'm not committing these. I'm not going to commit these yet. No, I'm a bit more confident in that. Let's see. All right, boom. I was right. Okay, last one. All right, let's make it 4 of 5. I lost count of how many tests I've done. This should be the 5th test. If I can make it 4 from 5, I'll be happy. It's really tricky. I'm listening to the top end to discern the 0 and the -12 input. So the 0 input and the -12 input and output. Because the top end's giving me away. I'm trying to find the biggest gap between those two, as in where there's the most top end, the least top end. That gives me the 0 and the 12, and then I typically try and notch the 5 in between. So that's how I'm sort of using my ears to lean into what are these things doing, and it's trying to train my ears to understand the processor better. That's the whole point of this. So let's see if we can get this on the last one. Let's do a little shuffle. Come on, I got this right. Boom, that's 4 out of 5. It's not the 5 out of 5 I wanted to get. And I might have been doing those tests quick, but that's just the way my brain is. Like, if I'm hearing it, I've got to commit it. So what does this mean for me now? After I did these first tests this morning, I started pulling up standard clip and doing the same thing with the oversampling. And I'm starting to go through each of my processes. I'm going to start doing the analog chain again. The analog chain, I was actually always very conscious of this because the gain staging in it is very sensitive. So I know when I'm driving it, what it does to the tone. But with digital plugins, I don't know. I knew this was a thing. I knew it. And I would apply this knowledge often when it became an issue. But because it isn't an issue all the time, I wasn't always hyper conscious of it. Hyper important. I might put that at the start of this video because it's such a good tidbit. So now, what can you guys do? 5-day mastering sprint. Go join it. And also, if you're really interested in detailed, nuanced things like this, I have a video all about clipping up here, which I think you would enjoy. If you enjoyed the technical stuff here, you're going to love this video, so go check it out. Until next time, take care. This is very important. If you've stayed this long in the video, you'd be stupid to click out now because there's real knowledge bomb about to drop. Why is this important? It's because when clients send off something for mastering, they've given me a mix to master. Often it is the most minute, minuscule details that will make or break a project. You can send a mix off to a dozen mastering engineers and get a dozen great masters back. Incredible masters that will make you happy, but might not be 100% on the nose. And it's the smallest details and nuances like this in when I'm using a processor and how it affects those small details of a client's mix that make or break the project, that have the client absolutely singing my praises or sending me back notes. So this whole exercise here might seem like a bit of a vanity exercise or project, but for me, it's about having a better intimate understanding about what every single tool and what every single process does at every single level. So when I'm making decisions, I'm not only aware of how those decisions may affect little details in the mix, but I'm also consciously listening for them. So that way I'm not stepping on the feet of a mix. Hyper important. I might put that at the start of this video because it's such a good tidbit. So now, what can you guys do? 5-day mastering sprint. Go join it. And also, if you're really interested in detailed, nuanced things like this, I have a video all about clipping up here, which I think you would enjoy. If you enjoyed the technical stuff here, you're going to love this video, so go check it out. Until next time, take care.